the former Bellator lightweight champion, and now the former UFC lightweight, is no longer a part of the company. He has left the UFC, and he is now part of the Pro Fighters League. We're talking about Will Brooks, one of our favorites on the program. It has been a while since we've talked to him, so let us go to the Skype machine and say hello to Will Brooks. There he is. Will, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm blessed, brother. How are you?
I'm doing good, and I'm sorry for keeping you waiting. We went a little long there, but I appreciate your patience. We have a lot to discuss here. You are no longer a part of the UFC. Did you get released, or did you leave on your own? Could you tell us what happened?
It was kind of, it was, I wish I wish I knew how to explain it exactly, but just the simplest way I can put it is that we were kind of given the idea that we were going to be on the cut list. From what my manager has explained to me, that they were working on trying to find us a fight, but they also let us know that if they weren't able to find me a fight, that they were going to release me. So we were given the option during the process of Sean Shelby or the UFC trying to find me a fight, that if we wanted to go out and seek out other employment and seek out other opportunities, we would be able to do that. And then we would be able to come back. And if we felt like sitting and waiting to see if something happens or just asking for our release, we could do that. So my manager went out, sought out other opportunities. The PFL just kind of happened. The timing was amazing with that. Just all of it was kind of coming together. And we sat back and really thought about the opportunity with the PFL, this $1 million tournament, and sticking with the UFC. So, me and my manager talked, my wife talked, my family members talked. We went back and just requested my release, and I decided to go with the PFL.
What was that like when you came to the final decision? All right, the UFC run is over, because as fans of yours in the sport may recall, you took a chance. You left Bellator as champion because you wanted to sign with the UFC, and maybe make a little less initially, but you had full confidence that you would make a run and become a champion in the UFC. When you came to the realization that the UFC run was over, what was that like?
And honestly, it was a little frustrating, just because I feel as though like I could have did way better than what I did. I just didn't go out there and get the job done that was expected of me. So that's frustrating. But at the same time, when I step back and I look at the life that I live, the fact that I wake up every day, I see my wife who's carrying my son now. I go and wake my daughter up. I go and cook breakfast for my wife. I cook dinner. I do all these different things. I have incredible people in my life. Once I started looking at my life outside the octagon, that made it a lot easier for me to be like, you know what? God has always put me in the best opportunities to be the best husband and fighter and father I can possibly be. So I'm just going to trust that my God is walking with me in this next phase of my life, and I'm going to move forward. And that kind of gave me peace of mind and just accepting what comes next,
What went wrong in the UFC? Why didn't it go as you expected?
Nothing. I just didn't get it done. I think I allowed a lot of outside things to get in the way, and I just didn't make the right adjustments and adapting to different things that was taking place. And that's on me. I take full responsibility for that. That's at the end of the day, you can have all these coaches, you can have teammates, you can have whoever it is working in the background trying to get you on track, and they're working hard. But if you're not focused and locked into what you're doing, especially in this sport, then there's no way you're going to have the success that you're looking for. And I wasn't locked in, I wasn't dedicated, and it came back to bite me in the butt. And, I accept that.
Well, when you say not locked in, not dedicated, could you expand on that? Because I mean, just like you're always in phenomenal shape, you train with a great team. What do you mean by how could you not be locked in when you're fighting, for the major organization in the sport?
For me, I was in this phase of life where I was just looking for something, and just kind of in this phase where I was looking at my wife, I see my daughter, and I was putting all my energy into trying to be the best husband and father that I could possibly be, because this is a brand new thing for me. I'm only 2 years in. Come July, will be 2 years into being a husband. Come March, will be 2 years into being a father. And these are things that I never really believed could ever happen for me in my life. Just the way it was written out in my past and how things have come about. And for me, I put a lot of energy in making sure that I laid the foundation to be the best dad that I could be, the best husband that I could be. And when you do that, you have to be able to find a middle ground between being a competitor, being a fighter, and that being your first job, and being a father and a husband. I think I put more energy into being a father and a husband than I did into going in the gym, being on time, being there every single day, putting my focus and being locked in and doing what I'm doing in the gym and taking that dedication and focus into the octagon. I wasn't doing that. And if I had the option to do it again, I'd go about doing it again. I put all my energy into my being the best husband and father I could possibly be, and I don't regret doing it that way. I just wish I would have been able to find a balance between the two, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. So again, I put it all on my shoulders, and you move forward.
So you're now with the PFL. You still have to find that balance. Are you confident you'll be able to find that
Yeah.
balance? It's still something that needs to be done regardless of where you're fighting.
Yeah, I think this last training camp, getting ready for Nick Lentz, I was starting to find that balance. I was getting back to feeling like, a competitor, that fire inside, that spark was lit again. But it's a process. You go through the process. You can't just expect it to just jump back in there and be like, yeah, I'm back. This is it. I'm ready to go. But, I lost that fight. But a lot of things that I take away from that fight was during the training camp, my mentality, my process of going through training camps and being completely dedicated to the training camp, being locked in, finding balance between me, being a husband and a father, and being a fighter. I had that. I felt that. I felt really good with that. But you miss a couple steps here and there, and you just keep building on it. So I feel as though with going into the PFL, I'm going to continue to take these steps, and I have a lot of time in between now and the actual first fight at a tournament to continue to build on those things, and I'll do that. And I've sat down with my wife and my coaches, and we've all had very, very open and honest conversations about where I've been mentally and where I've been emotionally and where I need to be and what I need to do. And we've all come to a very good understanding of where I need to go.
When you fought Nick Lentz and you walked out of the cage, was there any thought in your mind that said maybe this is the last time in the UFC? Like, did that even cross your mind once?
Yeah, it did, because I'm the one thing that I try my best to do is recognize that this is a business. The UFC is a well-oiled machine. It doesn't, like you said before, it doesn't take very much for the UFC to cut me and keep moving. So I had to keep that in mind. I'm 1-3. My fight against Ross Pearson wasn't the most spectacular performance I ever put on in my life. So you win that one, and it was like, yeah, whatever, and then you go lose 3 in a row. That you recognize what type of business the UFC is, and you recognize that, hey, I might be on a cut list, and you have to be okay with that. You have to respect that, and understand that we're cogs in the machine, and they're really good at taking one piece out and putting another piece in. And the guys that are really heartbroken and emotionally invested in it, when they get released and they get pulled out of it, they don't know how to bounce back because they didn't recognize that we're replaceable pieces. So if you can get comfortable with that idea, it's a lot easier.
I know you said you don't have regrets about the run in the UFC, but towards the end, as you said, 1-3, did you ever think, man, maybe I shouldn't have left Bellator? Maybe it was just working for me there. Maybe this wasn't the right move. Did you ever think about that? Do you regret leaving Bellator?
No, man, I can't. Like, the biggest thing for me is everything that I do in my life, I'm doing because I'm trying to learn lessons. So when my daughter is of age, when she's at an age where she needs to make decisions in her life, or my son is at an age where he needs to make decisions in his life, I can't teach them to go after whatever goal they've set for themselves and never have done it myself. I can't tell them to go without fear and to trust that everything is going to work out, and trust that God is going to be there for you, and believe these things if I've never tried it myself, if I never put myself out there and risked it myself. So I don't look back on it. I don't regret anything. I saw an opportunity to go after a goal that I set for myself, and I went for it. Did it work out the way I would like it to have worked out the first time around? No, but the UFC ain't going. The UFC ain't going nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, they ain't going nowhere. So why be like, oh my God, it's over with? Oh no, like, look at guys like Robbie Lawler. Look what he's done. You know, he stepped away from the UFC and taken a few losses and went through his journey and came back, evolved, and became a champion in the UFC. You know, so there's a great amount of examples that can show people that just because you see the ending does not mean that that's the ending. That's the ending of that chapter. It's not the ending of the book. You know.
So you are hopeful that you'll return. You do want to return to the UFC at some point.
I mean, I'm not hopeful. I mean, if that's something that my Lord, my Savior decides that He wants to put in my life, when that time comes, I'll address that. But right now, Will Brooks, I'm 100% focused on being the most professional athlete, fighter, like contractor that I could possibly be for the PFL. You know, so
Yeah.
that's what my focus is. Whatever happens in the future, I can't tell that. But for the next 2 years, working with the PFL, I'm going to give them 180% of everything I've got to make sure that, you know, I go through this rebranding stage that I'm going through, this rebirth of myself, and help them go through their rebranding and their rebirth, and just do my best to be there as a professional.
Upon leaving the UFC, did you talk to any other organizations, or was it just the PFL?
My manager searched around for other things. There was other opportunities that were presented, you know, but they weren't $1 million opportunities. You know what I mean?
Sure,
Like,
sure.
how can you turn down that opportunity? You know, like, granted, it's not a guarantee. You still have to go out there and compete, you know, and
Sure.
get out there and win and go through the tournament process. But look, man, like, let's say I would have stayed with the UFC, and there was a possibility I could have did that. You know, somebody get hurt and I get plugged in, and you know, you keep it moving. But at the same time, it's like, well, when when's the next time I have an opportunity to fight for $1 million? Like within a year, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we just started like looking at things and saying, man, my main goal is to take care of my wife and my daughter and my son that's on the way, and to do that by any means necessary. And we were just like, yo, if we go out here and rip off a few wins and win $1 million, I ain't worried about nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Right. How
Do
many
it 2 years
fights?
in a row. Ariel.
Yeah.
Do it 2 years in a row. You know what I'm saying? You still got to pay taxes, gym fees, management fees. I'd pay those things and I'd be okay. But, you know, so I'm not tripping about nothing, you know?
How many fights do you have to win the $1 million?
It's you got 3 fights. So it's two from what I'm understanding, and I'm a pretty simple dude. I just show up when people tell me to fight, it's time to fight, and I'm gonna get ready to go fight. But from the way it breaks down, it sounds as though you get one fight regular season, one fight in the playoffs, and then you have one fight in the final, the finale, or whatever. And so 3 fights to win $1 million.
Do you have any doubts that this organization doesn't actually become a thing? I mean, they were supposed to start in January. It's been delayed now till June. They just announced, part of it. But is there any doubts? It's always different when you're starting, and you call it a rebirth. And I get what you're saying with the WSF, but essentially this is a new organization, right? Some other familiar faces, but with new backing, new ownership. Any doubts that this doesn't actually come to fruition?
I mean, sure, you could go that route, but
Yeah.
if we spend most of our time worrying about doubts, then we'll get nowhere. You know what I mean? Like they did a great job with going back to the drawing boards, bringing in people that will help them, you know, kind of get things on a better track than what they did in the past. I think they got a great group of guys that they've put together to keep this thing going. Do I know if it's going to go 4 or 5 years, 7 years, whatever it is? I don't know, but you know, I'm mainly focused on this year and next year. You know, so. But look, straight up, honestly, if I mess around and all of it works out and I rip off $1 million this year, then like I got money in my bank account. I'm gonna be okay. Like whatever happens next I can't control what they do. You know, I
Right,
can't
right, right.
control if whoever's put money into it, if they decide to step away. I can't control any of that. All I can control is whatever my guy puts in front of me, and he's put this opportunity in front of me, and I'm gonna go after it. Not many people get to sit down and be like, hey, we're most likely going to release you, but we're going to give you an opportunity to go look for another job while we look. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
not many people get to leave a job and go right into a job. You know what I mean? So, you know, we'll see what happens. But my main focus is take care of my wife and my daughter and my son by any means necessary. Either that's with the UFC, PFL, Bellator, Risen, wherever it's at, I'm gonna get it done.
Do you know when your debut is going to be? What the date is for the debut?
Um, I think it's in June. June 7th is the featherweight. The featherweights and heavyweights, I believe, starts, and then June 21st is lightweight and welterweight, and then I think like July is the heavier weights or whatever it is. But
Okay.
I believe June 21st is when the lightweights are supposed to start.
And do you know who your first opponent will be?
I don't. I believe, from what I've heard, I believe the PFL is going to make their announcements of brackets and roster announcements, all those things, next month.
Okay. Two last quick things for you. I have noticed, and I don't know if this is a change, but I just wanted to ask you about it. I always find this interesting. It seems just even from your answers and from your social media that you've become more religious. I noticed you mentioned has something changed to where you feel strongly about faith. Or maybe you've always been this way, and I'm just noticing it now.
No, I've always been pretty religious. I've just never been very open about it,
Okay.
just because my own stubbornness, my own pride, I think I'm a very self-confident guy, and everything that has ever happened in my life, I've always kind of taken credit for it. But there's times where you go through life and you are, for me, over this last year and a half, I have been a little down, a little upset, a little embarrassed, and unsure, and filled with a little bit of fear and questioning things. And all I've done is step back, and I start saying, man, you know what? If I don't have the answers, then maybe I need to step back and seek out these answers somewhere else. And for me, that was going to church, going back to church and finding my faith and building a relationship with God, and just kind of saying, you know what, man, I clearly haven't come up with the answers for myself. I'm going to give over control to you and just trust that you got me, and every step that I've done that this past year and a half, I've only received blessings. It may not be these big, huge things, but there's been small blessings here, small blessings there, and they all been adding up. And I see it, just things happening in my life. The more that I trust that my God is there, and the more I continue to try to build my faith and build my religion, and my where I'm at in my religious journey, and as I've done that, it's helped a lot of things in my family with me and my wife. Um, Things that, the way I approach things, going to the gym, the way I approach other people, um, it's just helped me with some things that I've gone through. And where I'm at right now in my life, I've just recognized that every time I've given up and I've asked them for help, blessings have come to me, just like this PFL situation. So I want to continue to be open and honest about my faith, and I want to continue to grow in my faith and my relationship with God, and my journey.
I feel like the tournament is tailor made for someone like you. You know, wrestlers tend to not take as much damage than a sort of brawler. Do you feel like this is a perfect? I know they were talking to someone named Chris Wade, a former UFC fighter, and I also feel he's a free agent. I was like, oh, that's the perfect place for him because he can run through the tournament, be dominant, win fights. I'm not saying be boring, but just not the point of this is not take damage, keep going, and end up with the money. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel like this is perfect for someone with your fighting style?
Yeah, because that was part of the reason why we, like, when I signed with the PFL, it wasn't like, oh, they threw us an offer. All right, sign the papers right now. Let's just go. It was a lot of things that was taken into consideration. And for me, I went back and I thought about it. I was like, man, I did pretty well in those Bellator tournaments. And I just looked at some of the strategies that we put together. And one of the things I recognize is I'm really good at being like consistently go, 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 just because my wrestling background and my wrestling attitude. So when I was able to have a fight this month and then fight again, my body just felt like a rhythm, like J.R. Smith, like a rhythm shooter, you know what I mean? Like you catch and shoot, catch and shoot, catch and shoot, But if you expect me to catch and dribble, 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 there's a good chance I might miss that shot, you know what I mean? So like this is just one of those opportunities to get back to like just rhythm, just catch and shoot, just catch and go. And it's like, man, this might actually be a really good opportunity for the type of fighter I am and my style of competing. And, again, the prize ain't bad either. You know what I mean?
As always, Will, I appreciate your candor. Thank you for coming on and talking about, the UFC run. I wish you the best with the PFL, and also early
Like,
congratulations to you and your wife on the impending arrival of your son. That's great news. I know how much you love being a dad, and I see that on social media. So congrats on that. Congrats on everything, and best of luck to you. Looking forward to seeing how you do.
hey, can I
Sure,
plug one thing really quick?
plug away.
Me and a really good friend of mine, Anthony Capro, is we're actually working on a nonprofit. We're actually in the process of putting things together. It's called One for All or All for One. He's a barber that works here in Coconut Creek at Sideline Barbershop. One of our goals is that we're just going to be traveling around to countries of that are unfortunate areas, like the different areas that are stricken with poverty and things of necessity that they cannot get to. What we're going to do is we're going to be going to these different areas, cutting hair and bringing toothbrushes, clothing, food, different things like that. And we're actually in the process of putting these things in place where we'll be able to bring in other barbers, and we'll put together a group of barbers that will be able to go to different areas and teach people how to cut hair, so then those people can, help themselves, maybe open up little shops themselves and feed their families with a skill that we've brought with them. And we'll continue to do that, and we'll try to build on that. And this is just a quick little summary of it. We haven't really nailed down exactly how we're going to go through this process, but I would love for people to keep their eyes out on that. Again, as One for All and All for One. It's a nonprofit with me and my friend Anthony, and we're going to be pushing that forward here soon.
That is awesome. Well done. Good luck with that. I look forward to seeing how that goes.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, I appreciate you putting that out there. All the best to you, Will. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right, there he is, Will Brooks, newest member of the Pro Fighters League.